Okay, cool. Thanks for that introduction. I hope we're not being like super formal, and I can just
it's very chilled. It's a conversation. Yeah.
All right. So I'm currently the programs manager at Zifm Stereo. It's a national radio station in Zimbabwe. I've been with Zifm for 8 years. This is something that is of interest to me as well, because I also have started an initiative that I call the Music Business Series, which is a series of workshops about similar to what we're discussing over here, essentially the business of music. And in our first couple of sessions, we were discussing radio quite a bit. So I'll try and share some of the things that we've discussed and some of the things that I know. And obviously, I would imagine that most people here already know some of the things. So bear with me if I go over things that you already know. But if there's anything extra, I'm open to questions and stuff. So your question was the importance of radio in the age or in the digital age.
In the digital area.
Sure. So there's several things to unpack there. First of all, radio is part of the digital age or the digital era. Radio itself has had to evolve because of the fact that the digital era is upon us. And much like almost every other business, the music business or the radio business has also had to evolve with times. So it's less of a question of despite and more of a question of along with. So radio has always been, the power of radio was always like, it's the most accessible, it's the cheapest, it's the most widely spread. And of course, the internet is a great equalizer. So if we were to take a look at the very surface of it, the majority of people in Africa still don't have as free access to the internet as we would like them to. So at the very surface level, the fact that millions of people who live in rural areas or in areas where network connectivity might be expensive, it still just shows the power and importance of radio. But let's not even consider that almost obvious answer for a moment. Let's think of the situation where, let's talk about a demographic of people who have both the internet and have it quite accessible and also have radio. So traditionally, radio has been, it's often been viewed as a place where, I don't know if you guys are familiar with drive times. So traditionally it was always like, drive times are the most popular on radio, mornings and afternoons. And that was for good reason. That was because people used to listen to radio in the cars. In most recent surveys, it's actually found that the majority of people who listen to radio on their phones. So cars or vehicles are no longer the most listened to places or spaces of radio. So that means that whether people are listening online via streaming or they have FM receivers on their phones, it means that radio seems to be part of the digital age, because we're still using the same instruments that we used to use for internet connectivity, for streaming, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it is, to listen to radio. So it's something that's growing at the same time as radio. Most radio stations all over the world as well have had to evolve in the sense that because Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, and all these streaming platforms exist, it's no longer just about the music. Radio used to be the hottest music, the newest music, that's where you go. Now, there is still an element of music, but it's no longer the most important element. And now it's more about connecting to personalities. So the thing with Spotify is music is great, but the power of radio is, if you're not with a person, or you don't have a friend, or you don't have someone you're talking to, especially.
I don't know. Just one Zambia guy, he always sends me Zoom link.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries, sorry.
Bonji just joined us, yeah.
The power of radio has been to connect to the personality. So it's no longer just about he's the one with the best music, but he's the one that I connect with. So I think it's a combination of so many factors. I think just to summarize my answer, so that if everything I've been ranting on about doesn't make sense, at least you can take this away from it. Radio hasn't been put in the background because of the digital age. Radio has had to grow with the digital age. And radio is just as viable now as it has always been. If not, it's more viable, because now, before you decide what's going to be hot on streaming and so on, it's the tastemakers who are going to push certain songs and the ones who are going to make them. Now it's not radio. Sure, there's tastemakers in different places, but radio still plays a very important role in making sure that music is popular. So if you're an artist who's trying to build your profile, radio is still something that's very important to you, and radio will take into account that the digital age is now upon us. And yeah, I hope that answers some of the question.
Yeah.
And if there's any questions, I'd love to elaborate on that further.
Yeah, definitely. I think I like the fact that you touched on tastemakers. That radio definitely was the first platform, or is the main platform when it comes to discovering new artists and also giving opportunity to new artists. And I just wanted to direct my next question to BlahTee. You know, in terms of just formats, like I know you with BBC, and you also host your own radio show. I just wanted to find out from you, like, what are some of the things that you are now looking at, or what are the things that you consider when, you know, you are taking in submissions, and what submission format do, you know, radio stations prefer when independent artists are submitting music? Because a lot of us independent artists, you know, always struggle with, okay, how do we get our music on radio? So would you please just share a bit more light on the processes that you've undertaken to give space for the new artists?
Yeah, sure. So with the UK, in terms of format, like with a lot of big stations, they have like a database in which they get their music. But with the more independent ones, they can easily just change whatever format you send them. They can easily just change it just by .mp3, .wav. But not a lot of DJs are going to do that. They don't have the time. They don't have to do that. So it would be good if you send them like several different formats, WAV or MP3, but the standard one is MP3. And also you've got to look at like the levels, the LUFs as well, because a lot, you'll just send it and when they play it, it's loud, and no DJ is going to have the time to, or radio host is going to necessarily give you the time or take out the time in their time. That sounds so weird. Take out time to change.
They're not gonna go out their way, yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna go out their way to change the LUFs for you and things like that. I do that with my show because, you know, my show is still quite small at the moment. But, you know, when I blow, I'm not gonna have time. So you got to make sure that your LUF and the DBS is between -9 and -14. Maximum -23, because that's like the law that they put in terms of the loudness of the music. And what was the rest of the question?
Discovering artists, how you actually go to what's the process you take, or the criteria in terms of being a tastemaker for your particular show?
When I first started my show, I used to go on SoundCloud. And a lot of people, they like to be like, oh, you're just a SoundCloud artist, blah, blah, blah. But SoundCloud is like the #1 go-to for a lot of DJs, especially if they're looking for new artists to showcase. So don't forget about SoundCloud. And also, how I see it as well is you just got to make sure that it's mixed and mastered properly. Like, that's the bare minimum that we ask for, like, because if it's not mixed and mastered properly, then they're not even going to listen to it, let alone play it. Like, there's sometimes like I'll be listening to a song and I can hear like a generator in the background, or I can hear like just other noise and wind in the background, and it's not that I don't want to play your music, I just can't. I find a lot of people as well, like they'll have the backing track and then sing over or rap over the track, but without actually doing anything else. And when you hear that, it's so obvious. It's obvious what they've done. And I think as long as you find, you know, a good studio, a good engineer, producer who can mix and master your song properly, there's no reason why you can't, you know, send it around to DJs. And I've also found as well, you need to, with the UK, I'm talking in terms of laws, yes, you need to BCC utilize BCC, because I don't need to see who else you've sent it to. I don't need to see other people's email addresses, because that's in violation of several laws over here as well. So BCC people, because especially if I've noticed that, okay, you've now exposed my email to
someone else,
to somebody else, I'm now gonna feel a way about it, and I'll be like, oh, person is so unprofessional, you know. But with me, I try and give a bit of leeway, because, you know, I'm there for unsigned and upcoming artists. That's my, you know, that's who I play on my show, because I find that there's not that many shows, there's not that many opportunities for unsigned and upcoming artists outside of UK. If you live in the UK, there's BBC Introducing, BBC Sounds, even what Danny was saying about the digital age and things like that. Like a lot of the radio stations, they've been digitalized online, especially with BBC. So you can just go online and listen to radio stations. Even on TV, they have radio station channels and things like that. So yeah, so what I look for is just have good quality music, and have a clean radio edit. You know, like, I would have thought that dealing with upcoming artists, that especially from Nigeria, that they would have a clean edit of their song, because I know that the laws in Nigeria are a bit wild. But no, still I receive things and it's like, F this, F that. I can't legally not play that unless it's after 9 p.m. So it's like the watershed time. So after 9 p.m., yeah, you can pretty much play whatever you want. But in terms of like BBC and stuff like that, it has to be a specialist program. So if you now send them something and they don't have a specialist program for where they can swear and things like that, they're not going to play your music, and they're certainly not going to clean it for you. I will, because I have time, you know. So but other DJs, they're not going to do that, and more times they might even be slightly offended, especially with the BBC, because if it's not like BBC One Extra, if it's not like the young, like I work at BBC Radio 4, so it's a lot of older listeners, a lot of mature listeners, and I write for them as well. So they're not going to want to read about swearing. They're not going to want to hear that swearing. So it's got to be clean. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, you've given us great insight, because I think one of the things that we always tend to forget or overlook is the quality. You know, we just get excited when we record a song. I know a lot of artists are literally like, I've recorded a song, I want to release it tomorrow. Can it go wherever? But I think just to add on to what you're saying as well, and just to encourage the rest of the artists, is that we need to start being more intentional about how we package our music. Also including information about ourselves, making sure that we write a press release so that it makes it easier for the music compilers when they get the information.
Because you said release, I find that a lot of the submissions that I get, they overtalk themselves, and then when I go to Google them, there's nothing.
There's nothing.
You should not overtalk yourself and be like, I'm the next, I've sold out this, I've sold out that, and then I go to Google you and I see your Twitter feed and that's it. No statistics, nothing. So just be honest, be truthful. There's no reason to, I understand how in Africa, if you talk up yourself, you're more likely to, you know, get played and things like that. But over in the UK, just be honest, just be like, hey, I'm an upcoming artist, I've made this song, I'd love to know what you think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to quickly remind what Maki said, sorry.
Yeah, carry on, Danny.
You would think it's a no-brainer that an artist would have a radio edit for their radio submission, but it's somehow, you would think it's common knowledge, but it's not. And like she said, most radio presenters, music compilers, DJs, they're not going to have time to clean your song for you. It's like, especially if you're up and coming, if you're someone who's trying to prove yourself, if there's the slightest reason for them to be like, I don't have time for this, your song is gone. Even if it was like a really potentially good song. So just, I mean, it doesn't hurt to just do the best you can to make sure that you take away any barriers. Make sure there's a clean radio edit.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. And also just basic information, you know, because your Twitter handle, your Instagram handle, where they can actually find your music, you know, whether it's a SoundCloud link as well, or whether now it's on the online platforms, you know, so that you just try and feed them information that allows them to want to know more of you. Because just going back to what you're saying, Danny, that about, you know, we're now crossing over into personality. You know, radio is just that bridge now that is you know, allowing you to connect to the personality. And I think my next question now is for Odulele, going into the music now. You know, I wanted to just touch a bit on sound, because I know, like in Africa now, the dominant sound is Afrobeat. But we've got many genres that have come out of Afrobeat. So I just wanted to touch quickly with Odulele on, you know, what are some of the things that you have been looking out for in terms of sound, and what is radio leaning more into, and even from a DJ's point of view, when it comes to sound and how you can, you know, help artists develop their sound and still be authentic and not feel like they need to fit in.
Mine is only has been So I very sure in Afrofuze
So I don't know if everyone can hear you. It's a bit. Can everyone hear you?
Can you hear me?
No, like I think your internet is breaking. I could hardly hear you.
Yeah, it's very.
Okay.
Maybe you could try and fix it. Like then come back, I guess.
Okay, let's try.
All right.
All right, Danny, would you like to take that for us while we try and get him back?
Sure. Just run the question by me again.
Okay, the question was, we're now talking about sound, you know, going back to, you know, Africa is the next hottest thing right now. And I can safely say that everyone is after Africa. You know, what advice can you just give to the artists to create a sound that is still authentic to them and not feel like they have to create an African sound just to fit in?
Cool. All right. So first of all, just to underline the point of your question, all the major labels seem to be paying an extra interest in Africa at the moment. And that's because it's the last frontier. And we can see it, for example, I don't know if you guys have been paying close attention to the rollout of Burna Boy's album or Nasty C's album in the past couple of weeks. It really shows that major labels, which previously hadn't paid that much attention to Zimbabwe, or rather to African acts, they're really paying that much extra attention. Just for example, Spotify had Nasty C's album on a billboard in Times Square for 24 hours. That's huge. I mean, in that 24 hours, how many American acts, European acts, etc., were prejudiced of that same billboard time? It means they recognize that African acts have a huge value as well. And it seems to be more and more. And this is kind of perfect for an up and coming artist. If you're already established, it's gonna. I think it's a little difficult to plan for the future because you're essentially at your peak. But if you're up and coming, you're thinking that in the next couple of years, in the next 5 years, maybe even 10 years, all these major international eyes and ears are going to be towards Africa. How can I then position myself to make sure that they catch me when I'm there? And it really underlines the word that you used is authentic. And that's ultimately what it is. American rap exists, plenty of it. European house, Euro house exists, plenty of it. You know what I mean? So then no one is going to pay attention to Africa for European or American sounds. If they're coming here, they want your authentic sound. They want you. It could be that, depending on which country you're in, perhaps you have a different style or a different genre of music. And I think it is a little smart to kind of think a little commercially, like how can I make sure that my authentic sound is still to a certain standard or level of the international tastes and so on. I think it's smart to think about that, but ultimately the goal is to be your authentic self. I want to give an example of rappers, hip hop artists. There is a certain template that exists for rap, because I mean we've known about rap for years, right? Rap has existed from the United States and exported all over the globe, and all over the globe has there's all kinds of rap styles and songs. So it is so easy to sort of fit into the mold of what already exists. You know, you're going to have a boom bap beat, and you're going to ram with a little bit of a certain lilt to your voice and whatever, and that's kind of like the template that already exists. I strongly believe that for an African rap artist, it's going to be next to impossible to blow up if you sound like an American hip hop artist. I think it's going to be next to impossible. There may be one or two exceptions to the rule, true, but it doesn't change the fact that it's going to be so difficult. But if you're a rap artist who raps in your own language, for example, that's already something that's unique about you as compared to the rest of the world. Or maybe you're rapping in English, but you're incorporating sounds, instruments, and so on that are native to wherever it is you're from. That already gives you a certain element of uniqueness. Even if you're just as nice as the guy from the Bronx, if I'm looking for rap that sounds like it's from the Bronx, I'm gonna look for someone from the Bronx. But if you sound like, damn, like he's really spitting over that marimba beat, you know what I'm saying? That it gives you like this whole different vibe. So it really just underlines that element you're saying of being authentic. Just be you. Bring the sound that you bring. Whatever genre do, whatever genre you do, whatever place you're from, just be what is your art. And perhaps you feel that, no, but American rap is my art. Fake it a little bit. Just add a little bit of where you're from. And I think I'm saying fake it, but you'll find out that you're probably not even faking it. You're doing what is actually
just
authentic.
being yourself. Yeah.
So authenticity is so important because there's millions of artists. So you got to find a way to capture the audience that wants to hear you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you 100%. Olu, are you back with us now? Can we try and test if your mic is back up? Olu? Yeah, his internet is giving him issues. Sorry, Bucky. Can you please just also add, like, I know seeing that you're in the UK and you're getting a lot of like African music, you know, what are some of the things as well that you are looking out for? Because I know, you know, everyone is hot on Afrobeats right now, but even with the other artists that are not necessarily submitting music that's Afrobeat, what are some of the things that you're looking out for at the moment?
Yeah, just exactly what Danny said, authenticity. For a lot of the time, like, especially when I receive rap music and there's a thick American accent, I'm actually even glad that Danny touched upon it, because I thought it was a personal thing. I thought I cringed because that's just what was in my mind. But honestly, it's just kind of cringe, especially if, obviously I understand, you know, when South Africans, Zimbabweans, they have this, it kind of sounds like a little bit like an American accent sometimes, and that's fine. But yeah, a lot of the time people are looking for just authenticity, just be yourself. I receive a lot of different genres, like trap, things like that, but especially with the language as well. And it's like, oops, sorry, I had a notification come up. So a lot of the language as well is like okay, for an example, I'll take the word bando. I don't know if it's a language that they use or is a term that they use a lot. But when I receive music that's like trap in the bando and things like that, I'm like, yeah, but what trapping?
What trapping?
What? How is that authentic to where you're from? To you know, to what you do? And I like it when artists speak their native language. I don't even like it. I love it because I understand that they've brought a part of themselves into that music and they're trying to do more than just, you know, be like everybody else. There was a time that I used to receive like a lot of trap music when trap music was in. And it's like, that's not necessarily the genre that I play on my shows at that time, at the show, because I was at another station then. That wasn't necessarily the genre that I played. So I was like, okay, why am I receiving all this? Oh, okay, it's because it's in, it's, you know, it's popular. And especially now with the way social media is and like Instagram, that whole algorithm issues and everything, like there's like thousands, maybe even more people doing the exact same music that you're doing. What makes you different? You know, you've got to stand out. You've got to, and the only thing that can make you different is if you be yourself. Is if, because if you now copy what's in or what's, you know, what's in vogue, they're just gonna be like, oh, it's another trap music. Oh, it's another, you know. But if you bring your own element to it, bring in your own language, your own kind of style, they're gonna be like, oh, okay, I like this person. They're, you know, they're different. They're, you know.
Yes, I fully agree. I know one of the things we have, because I work at a major record label here in South Africa, you know, and one of our sayings is that when you jump onto the bandwagon, it's already too late. You know, we're always looking for artists that have got a different approach to how they want to sound. Obviously, they believe in themselves. And they're not scared to experiment. You know, we've got Nasty C, and just to give you an example, it's like with Elaine. When Elaine came out, she's a South African R&B artist. You know, she came out sometime last year with the full R&B project. You know, and I remember when it came out at that time, people really started catching onto it slowly, but by the time she like blew up, we had like an influx now of all of these girls who are now making the sad girl music, you know. And if you look at now, a lot of these R&B artists, you see that they sort of like going into that same lane, but she's already created that lane for herself. And, you know, you can see that people are just really trying to make music just to fit in. I think I just wanted to sort of like just see if there's anyone who's got any questions at this point before we carry on. I know there are guys who've just recently joined us. Sean, I see you. Daddy Don, TJ, I see you. Tendai, OG, I see you as well. Is there anything that anyone would like to ask at this point so that we can take some questions? Okay.
I think just to break the ice, maybe it's vital for us to. Can you hear me? Hello, BlahTee?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Yeah. So I think because I think people get to be shy sometimes to ask questions because they're afraid of asking stupid questions in court. So, guys, this is a roundtable discussion. Feel free to ask any question. There's nothing like a stupid question. So,
okay, I know Uno's got a question. Yeah, let's go.
Okay. What is the bando? Because honestly, I don't know. I just want to know what the bando is.
Even me, I don't know. Honestly, I don't really know. I thought maybe it was like to do with like drugs or something. I don't know, or a car. I have no idea. So
now I think the bando is like slang for gang. Look, in different languages, like banda means a band, a gang. So bando is probably a jargon for gang.
Oh, word. Okay.
It's
Bando is
Yeah, I wish
actually,
I knew.
Bando is
So-
actually Mexican for a band of thieves.
No, a bando, when the rappers use it, they're referring to a trap house. So they're always talking about being in the bando, etc., etc. Anyway, it's very specific to not just America, but specific places in America. So Bucky was so right. There's no one in Africa who's gonna be saying I was at the bando. Like, get out of here.
All right.
Was there anyone else who's got a question?
All right. I think I think I've got a question. So look,
Okay.
when it comes to radio, right? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you
All right,
carry on.
perfect. All right. We noticed that there are a lot of tracks that get a lot of rotation, and there are some tracks that are played once or twice. I've done a lot of submissions for like the artists that I'm developing, and like some friends and so forth. But I've noticed that maybe like the tracks that I submit, they only pick up like they get played twice or once in the first week, and that's it. But like there's some tracks that I submitted from other people, that might in terms of quality wise and so forth, that get more airplay and rotation for a longer period of time. So I wanted to understand how does it work? What does the engine work? How does the machine work? So that like if we know how it works, the next time we're going to do submissions, we'll aim to like to have a long-term rotation going on. That was my question, I guess.
Um,
All right.
You can go ahead, Bucky. Sorry.
for me, personally, it's timeless music. Like if it doesn't particularly fit, like say, I'll use Burna Boy's the what's it called, The People That Made Us. His latest one with Chris Martin. So now that there's a revolution and everything going on, that will be on rotation, kind of thing. That will be, but maybe in 2 months' time they won't play it as much if the protests and things aren't going. So it's just to make sure to make timeless music. And also for me, if I like the song personally, I'll always remember it and think, oh yeah, let me put it in this week's playlist, or let me put this in next week's playlist and things like that. So that's for me personally. I don't know anyone else.
I'd also like to answer. This is obviously a bone of contention with many artists. So there's three things you need to consider. The first and probably the most important is the radio station. There's obviously multiple different ways that radio stations operate. For example, I work at a commercial radio station. But if you work at the BBC, I assume that's the national broadcaster. There's certain other policies that affect the national broadcaster. You sort of have to understand that radio stations have different things that drive them. So if you know that my contemporary hip hop song, which is for the young people, is really what I want to push, you're kind of wasting your time if you're submitting it to a station that only plays classic music. That seems obvious, but it does help you to sort of realize that different radio stations not only have differences in the major genres that they consider, but if you were to break it down even further, you'll realize that there's even the smaller things that they consider. So for example, I'll give you an example of the radio station I work at. We're a commercial radio station that primarily focuses on top 40 hits. So that means naturally the music we're going to play is music that's charting, right? That's the music that's going to be regularly playing. What is the policy when it comes to new music? Well, when it comes to new music, our specific radio station, the policy is music from artists that have previously charted or that are regularly charting is obviously going to have a much higher likelihood of regular rotation if it's new. So in Zimbabwe, for example, we know Ja Praiser is constantly having the biggest songs on radio. So if he releases a new song, it's very likely that his song is going to get played multiple times. What about a totally brand new artist? That becomes a little bit more difficult because the goal of the radio station is to play top 40 hits. That means we expect our listeners want to hear top 40 hits. So if you as an artist sort of understand that, okay, why does the radio what kind of music does this radio station sort of choose? And then you could decide, does my music work for this radio station or should I be focusing on a different radio station? That's the first thing to consider. So number one is the radio station. Number two is, you also have to understand that the radio station exists as an entity. All radio stations exist as an entity, but it's made up of people. And the people are the ones who make those decisions. So, for example, at Zifm, this radio station I work, there's a music committee that makes decisions on music. So ultimately, the music that plays is going to be based on the decisions of that committee. And they're just human beings. So obviously, imagine if there's an artist who has a song that might be considered a good song, but like everyone in the committee knows that person personally. Like, oh, I know that guy. We were in the studio with him the other day, and you know, the last time that he sent us music and so on. It's highly likely that if the song is good, it's going to get airplay. So it is kind of important for you as an artist to sort of develop a relationship with the radio station, because that gives you, it doesn't guarantee that your music will be played, but it does give you a little, it does guarantee that your music will be considered before being played. So it's good to develop a relationship. Now that doesn't mean constantly hitting up people and jumping in their DMs and so on. It just means you sort of have to understand that it's made up of people. And if I'm going to be in the same industry with these people, I need to try and build a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And sorry, the third thing to consider, what did I mention? I mentioned the station, the relationship with the people who work in the station. Oh yes, and your own personal footprint or presence. So you can't expect that your song, which you think is the best thing in the world, should have had 1 million plays on radio by now. I mean, it should be playing 3 times a day, but you've got 12 views on YouTube. It kind of tells you that, because especially for most radio stations who are trying to appeal to their audience, they want to play something that they think their audience will like. So if they think that their audience doesn't like you because they're not paying any attention to you, they're not going to play you. So you have to spend, apart from submitting to the radio station, you also have to spend some time building your own footprint. Radio is just one of the avenues. Make sure you do your own promo. And I can't tell you how many times as a radio station we've realized that, like, whoa, we kind of overlooked this song, but it's trending on YouTube. People are talking about it on Twitter. We have no choice but to play it now. That's happened several times. So I think those are 3 things to consider. Number one, consider what does the radio station consider when choosing music? Each radio station has different policies that they follow. It's worth it for you to learn each of the radio station's policies. Number 2, build a relationship with the people in the industry so that they pay attention to you when you drop something new. So an artist called me the other day to let me know that he's releasing an album. And he was like, I just want you to listen to it before I release it so that you can tell me like which songs work and which ones don't. I mean, it's a little annoying if 20 artists do the same, but it is good for the artist because then he realizes that now I know he's dropping an album, and when I receive it in my inbox, I'm going to remember that conversation we had. And thirdly, and this applies to everyone, whether you can build a relationship or not or whatever, just work on your own brand, because if you can't get it from the other ways, you can force the radio station to play you because you've already made yourself a trend or made yourself a big name, because people are already paying attention to you.
Yeah, now I fully agree with you. And just to add on to what you're saying, I think the other thing artists overlook is the actual listening to the radio station. A lot of artists just submit their music, but they don't actually listen to what the station sounds like. They don't know who's the host. Guys need to do research, find out who does what show, who's the music compiler, what are the trending shows, what are the top 40 songs, what do the top 40 songs sound like? It just gives you an opportunity to and even if you don't get the time to do it yourself, it's important to have a manager or management that allows you, to submit on your behalf, or let you know that, listen, this is what I think is the best route to take as far as submitting your music. And this radio would work more according to our taste and so forth. So I think I just want to move on to the next issue now, which is royalties, right? Because I know a lot of artists have got questions when it comes to royalties and how does that work and what do I need to do? And I'll just be transparent and let you know how we run it from a record label perspective, right? Record labels and radio stations have got great relationships because for us, it's an IP game, right? The more music we own, the more we use radio to make money. For us, it's really more about the bottom line, right? And it makes it very difficult for independent artists to then get airplay, because we literally send a lot more music to the radio stations to play, and we've got the resources and the power to make it trend. So like Daniel was saying, that if it's #1 on YouTube, they'll be put in a situation where they're forced to play it. Well, not forced, but we ask them to play it, right? And we've also kind of like developed the submission process over time, so we know in which formats we're sending it to. The power of relationships is also very important, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to build a brand, and as a musician, you want your songs to be able to be played well after you're gone. So in the UK, I know you guys have got a different format when it comes to royalties, and I'll just need your help, Baki, on which organizations guys need to sign up with, and how are you guys working over the issue of, you know, paying royalties to artists that are outside of the UK?
Okay, so there's a it's called PRS. I think you pay like a one-off for artists. You pay £100, a one-off fee, and that will give them that's a license for radio stations to play your music, and I think you get like, I think it's around £26. It varies per play on radio. So when I first started radio, this was one of the first things that I put on my Instagram page, like, guys, sign up to this, because what's the point of me playing your music and you're not being paid for it? You know, you're not receiving the royalties. I don't know if anyone has signed up. I have no idea, but and also it's like a publishing as well, publishing rights. I think if it's with publishing, it's £400. It's slightly higher because the royalties are slightly higher, and that covers malls, radios, any public place, basically.
Performance rights.
Yeah, and I'd encourage everyone to, like, if you're serious about, if you know that, yes, this is what I want to do, I will be a success, save up money and sign up for it. I know it's expensive in terms of the current exchange rate, like once you change it to Africa or different country currency, but if you believe in yourself, if you truly know that you are great, you need to invest in yourself, and this is one of the, you know, one of the ways that you can do that. PRS, and PRS has also just recently branched out to streaming as well, so they will pay you for your streams and things like that. I find that to put your music on Spotify and all those other places, I believe you pay, I don't know, an artist would have to verify that. I believe you pay for you to be able to get the royalties from that. But I find that Tidal is the best one, and not many people join it, but it is the best one. Every 100k play that you get, every 100k streams that you receive, you get like £2,400, whilst Spotify and Apple and iTunes, they're paying you what, £400 and things like that. So if you're like an upcoming artist, it's good to what's the word? It's good to investigate how much they pay, because yeah, everyone wants Spotify and things like that, but if you don't get yourself onto a playlist, onto a well-known popular playlist, you're not going to get as much royalties as you would on Tidal, you know. And I remember someone asking if it had something to do with, is it so high, do they pay you so much because of the little customers that they get or something like that? You know, that's got nothing to do with it. It's just that Jay-Z believes that artists deserve to get their money. And with PRS as well, I believe they pay out 90p for every pound, whilst others are paying out like 6p and 7p and things like that. So yes, I'll encourage PRS, music, and Tidal.
Yeah, you know, just to add on to what you're saying, because I know as well for South Africa, the royalty payouts are different according to obviously how the song is charting, if it's being played during drive time when they've got more traffic and so forth. Soko, I know you had a question for Danny. Would you like to go ahead and ask now?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. My question was, I wanted to ask, how do radio chat shows work? Is it purely based on votes, or there's a curator who is responsible for saying, okay, if a certain song comes out today, we're gonna sort of like ease it onto the chat show, starting from number 20, going on to number 15. Is there somebody who controls which shows are charting at any particular time, or is it purely based on votes?
Great question. Ultimately, each radio station is different. Each radio station has its own policies. Most radio stations have a voting system. I'll speak from the radio station I work at, but I'll try and also generalize it so everyone kind of gets the general view. So there's generally a combination of a voting system and curation. Especially for commercial stations that have a specialization in terms of genres or market that they target, there has to be an element of curation, because otherwise it would just be same songs across the board, So for our radio station, there is a voting platform. I think they use three main factors in determining what's going to be in the chart. So number one is the votes. Number two is the curation, like you mentioned, in terms of the genres that we play the majority of the time. Which ones are they? And the third factor is airplay. So you'll find that there's a lot of radio shows that have their, like the DJs themselves select which songs they're going to play. So there's a report that's received at the end of every month in terms of which songs have been played the most this month, which songs have been voted for the most this month, and which songs fall into the genres and categories that we consider to be this radio station's main genres. And normally that is not done by a single person, that's done by a committee. Yeah, but charts are great when you get them, but you shouldn't feel discouraged if you're not on them. I know you, Soko, you're on the charts, so you don't have to. You have to worry about it. You're worried about the little man. I see you. Yeah.
For me, Dan, it's always been I've got ever since I started making music, I've got a love-hate relationship with radio, because the type of music that I was known to make from the beginning was always, it was not radio friendly, because, people said it was too deep, it's not commercial enough. And the word commercial in Zim is always thrown around so recklessly. People like to use commercial so much, but what's really commercial? Because to me, when I speak, when I hear the word commercial, I'm thinking something that you can sell, It can be sold. I've heard really deep and conscious songs being sold in the States, being sold in South Africa. They're deep. But if you try to do something that's deep and socio-political commentary in Zim, you're considered not commercial enough. And I've always thought that was a flaw. But it's a fight that's too big for me to be fighting on my own. It's Zim
I agree
radio.
with you.
Zim radio is so different. Zim radio is so different from SA radio. It's so different from American or British radio, because those guys have got a lot of radio stations. First of all, the markets are so different. This side, our radio stations are so limited, so you've got all these artists fighting for airplay on like 6 or 7 radio stations out of what, 12, 15 million people. It's, it doesn't make sense. So this question wasn't specifically for the little man, it was actually for myself, because some of the charts that I've been on, it has been like a, like a consolation to say, okay, we'll probably get you on 1 or 2 charts.
So I agree with you. I don't think commercial is a label that should be applied to music. Commercial should be a label that's applied to a platform or a business, or in our sense, a radio station. And if you look at it that way, you sort of realize the radio station is the one that's commercial, which means the decisions that it's going to make are based on the money that it earns. It's a little bit different from certain other places or other spaces where it's about uplifting the community, or it's about giving a space to artists and things like that. When you think of the word commercial, it's literally about money. So if a radio station is commercial, you sort of understand that this radio station, the decisions it's going to make are based on how much money it can possibly earn. Therefore,
there'll be business decisions then.
Exactly. So I will rather play a more popular artist because I know this artist already has fans, and if I play this artist and I have this artist as on an interview and I play the song enough times, and you know it's one of the songs that's going to end up charting. Therefore, I'm going to have the listeners that I'm looking for. Therefore, I can sell ads. It's a little different to certain other spaces, which might even be on the commercial radio station, but in more niche areas where it's like this is a space for up and coming artists, or this is a space to support the music community. In that space, the decisions might be slightly different, you know. So you are right in that you sort of, there is a certain understanding that commercial music is this and non-commercial music is that. But do you know what the #1 song on Zifm is this week?
What is?
ASAF's Asfeli Moya. And to me, that's not a commercial song, but that's #1 on the charts. And it's a song that's very much about social conscious conversation.
Okay,
you know?
So I'm going to ask a question which maybe you might not be able to answer, but I like that song is there because, you know, I'm all about music that's socially conscious. That song, is it there based off votes, or it was curated by whoever curates the Zifm Music Committee that curates the chart shows? Is Asfeli Moya on #1 because everybody has been voting on it, or it's because it's been curated there?
It's on those 3 factors: the voting, the curation, and the number of plays. So Baki mentioned earlier, for example, that new Burna Boy song. It's not necessarily Burna Boy's best sounding song ever, but at the time that we're in now, it fits perfectly because there's so much going on around the world about protests. So you can already imagine that song would be played a lot all over the place and would be charting high because of that. So in a similar way, as you know, in Zimbabwe right now, that's kind of the mood that's happening. So those kind of songs would likely get a lot of airplay, which means one of the factors that's being considered, which is airplay, is already checked. You already know that song is getting a lot because of what's going on around. And then now the other 2 factors come into play, which is the votes and the curation. So when I say curation, I don't mean someone just decides that I think this should be at the top. Curation is in the sense of,
because I thought that's what happened.
No, these songs fit in our genres and categories. So they're the ones that are considered, and these ones don't necessarily fit. And then now we look at airplay plus votes.
Interesting.
I think, you know, just to carry on the conversation, Real Z had a question. Real Z, are you still here? So that you can go ahead with the question. We're going to get to question and answers just now. Real Z, if you can.
Yes. Yes, hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, I'm Rosie. I'm from Nigeria. I mean, I picked up people parties and I actually just went off with things and I enjoying the program. But my question is,
okay.
You know, what in Nigeria, you know, they make us realize that when we're talking about when Buki was talking about PRs and all that, you know, mostly we are promoting the songs in Nigeria and all that. The radio stations make you feel like they're helping you, like you don't get paid for it, you don't get everything, which actually discourages a whole lot of communities because you have to pay them because before they play your song because you're a community. So a whole lot of communities really don't have that access much to display their sound out there to even get more audience. So and that's more reason why I'm actually working on a project. I have to hold it down for some time just for me to get all of these things right. Like me putting my songs at the right channels where I should put it, which is the PRS thing and all that. So I would like Buki to actually enlighten me more of all of us right now more about PRS because I really wanted to. I don't want to make those mistakes and make bad things. I have a video on YouTube having over 415,000 views without, as in, you know, a phone for it and all that. So I really wanted to get all these things straight. So I would like if you can actually elaborate more on that about the PRS, so that when next up communities or anybody around me or anybody I know is blessing, I can actually guide them right.
Okay, did everyone get that?
Okay. He was asking about PRS. Was he? I think
he was also
the
asking. Yeah. I think just to the one thing I caught was him saying that he kind of feels like in Nigeria, the radio guys make it seem like they're helping the artists out. And I think just to give more clarity on that, and something that even as artists and labels, we've actually just need to realize more of, is that radio is a business. Like everything in the music industry is a business. There's no such thing as, oh, I'm doing you a favor or whatever. But the radio station will start taking you serious when you start taking yourself serious. So we need to be very professional in how we approach them. I understand that we have to build relationships as well. But in the building relationships, always realize that for you, it's a business. So how you treat your business is going to also depend on how they respond to the way you reach out to them. So no, they're not doing you a favor. They need your music in order for them to survive. That's how they pay their bills. That's how you pay your bills. It's a transaction. And I'll always bring it back to the bottom line because I'll just give an example for myself. Before I started working for a record label, I used to think about all of these things and I was very worried about all of these things because I always felt like, how do I reach out to people and get our music playlisted and do all of these things without becoming annoying, because like you're saying that so many times you get overwhelmed if you've got 20, 30 people sending you their songs a day. It becomes very difficult for you to actually get the time to sit down because you still need to do your job. You still need to compile the show. You still need to make sure that you've got a good show and people are still listening. You need to engage with your listeners. So also realize that, listen, I've invested this much, not only into my art, but, into the business aspect of it. So if it means that you're getting a manager, someone who's going to actually take time to investigate more on these radio stations to find out how you actually get paid, it'll make a lot more sense because you don't want to send your music to the radio stations and then not also earn from it. At the end of the day, I think we're having these sessions because we're also trying to get to the bottom of the business. And the next question, yes, sir. Daddy Don. Yes, please go ahead, Sean.
I just wanted to find out from Danny. See, 80% of the time, artists would rather have a situation where they send music to a radio station and it's played without contacting someone that works there. Because, for example, if you come to South Africa about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a culture of breaking records. Kusheshe was broken by Thibaut Touch. C Live used to actually go looking for like new artists and put them on to radio. And also considering that radio has got segments throughout the day. Why is it in a country like Zimbabwe, we don't have like segments that only focus on like underground artists? Like Kuzo Teledi has got on a show on YFM. She's got a certain time where she breaks international artists, but underground. That's where I discovered her and a lot of like artists that are unknown. It seems like radio stations, from where I come from in Zimbabwe, are focusing on elite artists, and they don't want anything to do with underground artists who have good sounds.
Thank you. Feels weird calling you Daddy Don, but cool. So, first of all, you're absolutely right. Breaking an artist is every radio presenter's dream because it's kind of the thing that makes a radio presenter. If you get what I mean, when you break that brand new artist and you know that I'm the one who introduced the world to this person and now they're a huge star, that's huge. You will find that for every artist broken, though, there are hundreds that just didn't quite make the cut. So sometimes it's easy to look at why are there no new artists broken, I sent in my music and it wasn't even played. And then you don't look at the ones that were broken. In Zimbabwe, for example, it's only in the past 8 years that we have had any new radio stations apart from the national broadcaster. And since in those 8 years, just think about the number of artists that have been broken once the new players came in. And I think most of us who are in Zimbabwe can identify that, you know what, this person only became famous because of Zifm or Star FM or whatever the case is. I do happen to agree with you that I think that there's more that can be done for newer artists. In fact, I saw in the chat someone asked for a definition of upcoming artists. That will differ for everyone, but I think ultimately we're saying that someone who's not well established, someone who doesn't already have a big fan base behind them. And most radio stations have those spaces. On ZFM, for example, every morning at peak time, like peak time in the morning, there's a spot for one local artist, not even international, local artist who's brand new. So there are spaces for that. I think you're right that there is probably room for more spaces, and that's probably something that needs to be implemented. But those spaces do exist. But ultimately, it's like BlahTee actually mentioned it, and I agree with him that radio is a business. So the decisions that are made for most radio stations, which are commercial businesses, is money-based and not. It's the benefit that comes to the artists are a good bonus, but it's not the reason why decisions are made, if that makes sense. But sort of when you kind of understand that, you sort of realize that the decisions that are going to be made here are, we are going to play the more established artists because we believe that that artist is going to bring us more listeners because they already have fans, and because of that, you know, there's benefit that comes to us. But at the same time, we recognize that we need to also break new artists. So there will be room for new artists coming in. It's not going to be a 50-50 situation. The majority of the time, it's going to be that top 40 music that's playing. But there has to be a space for the new, because you got to constantly reinvent yourself. You want to introduce what's fresh, what's new, but it's not the main thing that you're doing. So I guess maybe it just comes to an understanding. Some people view it differently. Should we have more new music? Should we have, yeah, I guess it's just an understanding of how things are done differently. BlahTee wants to answer.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I think Sean, just to, okay, BlahTee, you can go first, and then I'll add after you.
I've actually got a question. Is there not like community radio stations in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and things like that? Because for me, when I started my own radio station, I wasn't nowhere near the BBC. Like, I remember I started it, and it was just little on me and my university radio, and the artists that sent me their music, that gave me. But then again, I understand that me being in the UK, that is a privilege. I find that they wanted to be like, oh yeah, my music played in a radio station in the UK, even though it was just a campus radio station at the time. So I'm wondering, is there not like community radio stations and things like that? Is it must to reach for the bigger station? Because where I am now, I'm on BBC Radio 4, not necessarily with my show. You know, I write for them. I'll say, oh, this music is really great. Why don't we have it? You know, why don't you look at it, Sean, one of the producers I work with? Why don't you put it in? You know, things like that. So couldn't you reach out to community radio stations and things? Because yeah, they're starting from community, but that's not where necessarily they're going to end up. They're going to, you know, they're all growing. They're going to get bigger, you know. So I don't write off the little people, the little radio stations, you know. Is there community?
Yeah, no, with Zim is a bit of an anomaly because I think we've only got like 3 major stations. We're still in the process as well of trying to like establish more radio stations there. Panashe, I know you've got something that you want to share. You can go ahead.
Thanks. I hope you guys can hear me. I was going to say there's a huge gap. We actually don't have community stations in Zim, for starters. So the three-tier broadcasting system does not exist in Zim. So you've got your commercial stations, which your Power FM, your Zifm, your Star FM, which Danny is speaking about and covering a lot. And I mean, you find that those guys, their bottom line is what matters to them. It's the business. And then what's supposed to be the public broadcaster, where you have your Power FM, National FM, Radio Zimbabwe, and Classic 263, they're not exactly, I guess, active, and their listenership has been taken away by these commercial stations because they're driving for the money. And so everybody's going over there. I mean, you can't deny that they still have a lot of impact and reach in Zim, but they're not exactly acting as a public broadcaster as they should be. So you're left with the very influential and the huge impact stations, which are your urban stations, which are your ZFM, Power FM, Star FM, and to an extent, Classic 263. And so that's really the challenge with Zim. Otherwise, if we had community stations, then yes, there'll be people breaking these artists. These artists will be coming from the grassroots. And by the time the commercial stations, the national stations latch onto them, there would have been something in their community. So they're now fighting for this little airplay and airtime, which the commercial stations are trying to make money. So like Danny said, they're going to play your popular artists, which bring them listeners, so that they sell the listeners to the advertisers, who are the ones that are going to give them the actual money for their stations. I hope that answers people.
Sorry, Blah.
Yes. You want to go ahead, Sean?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on that. I hear this word business and bottom line being thrown all over. I mean, a radio station's got 24 hours. Don't we have, like, after 12 midnight, 1 hour for new artists? Because it's a lot of kids that have got music in their bedrooms that needs to be heard. I mean, like hits, proper hits that need to be heard. And the more we alienate them by red tape, business and stuff, aren't we killing talent by doing that?
Yes, I think I can answer that question. I think that the issue here is just way beyond radio. I think it's an issue of creating platforms to actually break artists, right? Not just radio, but even if you look at digital, even if you look at record labels, if you look at developing record labels or whatever. I think the most exciting thing about the music industry is that everyone wants to get to the top, right? But the process in which that happens is normally, or most of the time, overlooked, right? So in the different tiers of how to break an artist, I think in Africa, we've had no development in that area. If you look at the States, for example, when it comes to like hip hop, every year they do what they call a freshman's list, where you know that you're going to get 5 or 6 artists that are going to come out. And then from there, they now kind of like welcomed into the music industry. Whereas in Africa, we've had a very difficult transition of actually having that happen, and this year, Nasty C, for example, is going to be part of that freshman's list. But that's now him breaking into the American market. So my next, the next thing I wanted to just touch on was how do we prepare ourselves, right, as artists to actually cross over into different territories, right? Obviously, we've kind of like noticed that with radio, because it's a commercial thing, or, like you're saying, that it's the bottom line that's being focused on the most. From an artistic point of view, it's very difficult to kind of like, you're like, okay, what happens next? I think what I wanted us to kind of like touch on, and even just to hear from some of the artists, like, what are some of the things that we can do ourselves as artists to package ourselves better so that we become more appealing? How can we also get to the fans? Because radio is a vehicle to get to the fan base, correct? And the most important thing at the end of the day, the people who are actually consuming the music are the fans, right? So how can we actually now put ourselves in a position to then reach out to the fans and, get them to listen to us directly, whether it's going to be still through radio, or we're doing it directly. Nans, I see that you had put your hand up. You can go ahead.
Mute.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Good, thanks.
Oh, yeah. This is an ask. This is actually, I'm good. Thank you. This is actually an ask. I wanted to know, because when I have been submitting my music to radio stations, obviously, someone said to me they only listen to the first like 20 to 30 seconds
30 seconds,
of
yes.
your song. Is it really 30 seconds?
Usually. And the reason that happens normally is because in the first 30 seconds you can tell what's going to work and what's not going to work, depending obviously on the tastes of the radio station. So
Of the radio
because
station,
guys, because guys receive close to, and I think just to also kind of like bring it into perspective, if a radio station is receiving 200 to 250 songs a week,
you can't
there's no
expect them to
time to
listen
actually
to
go through
everything. Yeah.
exactly. So
Okay.
it's difficult, but at the same time, like I was saying, that it's now an issue of how do we now cross over into the different territories, because like already here we've got a great network. We've got South Africa, we've got Zimbabwe, we've got Nigeria, and we've got the UK. How can we use this network now to spread our music even wider? Because I believe that everyone who's on this platform tonight has contributed. And it's been amazing because, we've learned so much from our different experiences. But even with the guys that are here who've had things work and who know exactly how things work, how can we actually now get, more into like, okay, the industry now to actually make sure that we establish ourselves? And I don't know, Baki, if you want to go first. How can we help the artists to package themselves better so that they can then transition into the commercial aspect of the industry?
It's just having a great press pack. When you've got a release, just to create like a press pack. Also, I find like if I'm I don't know if it's the Instagram algorithms as well, which seems to be quite an issue for a lot of people. But I'll be finding out about this artist. Say he sends me a song, and I'll be like, okay, let me check him out. I'll go on his Instagram, and he's got like 100,000 followers or something. But then when I look at his videos, or I look at the amount of likes he has, it's very low compared to, like he's still in the hundreds, but you've got thousands and thousands of followers. That doesn't really make sense. So I wouldn't encourage people to buy fake followers and things like that. I understand how a lot of people do look for the commercial package of a particular artist. Like, how are they going to package this artist? How are they going to do this and that? But that time of people looking at an artist like that is kind of gone. They expect you to come ready. Like, you should know the style who you are. You should know, how you're going to package yourself, how you're going to dress, what your message is going to be about. And also I've received, when I produce with BBC Radio, we'll receive music and it's rap, but BBC Radio 4, we don't play rap at all. Like, it's it's classical music. So I'd say investigate the stations that you're sending it to. Not only the stations, the music, the presenters, what type of show are they doing, and what was the rest of the question?
Just how can we package and prepare ourselves better? I think just to add on to what you're saying, when you start now focusing on the music and you start making noise, there's something Danny said earlier that when you do start getting a buzz, it becomes very difficult for you to ignore. I think that's another thing we just need to take time to focus on as well. Don't stop connecting. Like, we live in a world that is now digital. Get on Instagram, get on Twitter, get on LinkedIn. I know a lot of artists that have been able to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and they'll ask politely, like, hey, this is my music, or this is what I'm trying to do. But the one thing I'm always going to emphasize is we need to have a plan. I think as artists, we don't necessarily have a solid plan of how we want our careers to go. So we just kind of like get into this zone of, I make good music, or I like the music that I make. but think of where you want to be career-wise in the next 5 to 10 years. You know, if you're a rapper, are you going to be rapping after you're 35 or you're 40? You know, are you still going to have a career when you're 50? And if so, what are you doing now to make sure you get there? You know, every day you give yourself an opportunity to be like, okay, this is what I want to become. So what do I need to do on a daily basis to make sure that I get there? If you want to be a performing artist, if you want to be an artist that, I'll give you an example of like AKA from South Africa. He's a rapper who transitioned into becoming a pop artist because he understood that I want to make music that is going to cross over to different markets, different territories, and I don't want to release so much music over my career. The stuff that I release now will still be able to be played in the next 10 to 15 years. And if you actually think about his career, you know, he's had a career for 10 years and he's only got 3 albums. You know, so think about also the music that you're releasing. How often are you releasing music? What's the plan when it comes to releasing music? Another thing I just wanted to touch on, I know for artists, it's a great platform to then build a relationship with the radio stations. But how does interviews work? What is the criteria of an artist getting an interview on radio?
I'll answer that as well. I also wanted to say, like, you need to double check your content as well. Double check the name of the song is the name that you've named the file, because I've had times where I've added it onto the database and it's a completely different name and I don't have my notes in front of me or, you know, quick access to my notes like that. So then I just don't even end up playing it. Obviously that's my F up or my mistake, you know, but you just, if you labeled it correctly, then I'd know, okay, this is by you know. And what was your last question? Sorry.
The last question was interviews. How do artists get interviews on radio?
So with me, I think when they send me their music, I can ask them, oh, are you also interested in an interview? That's me personally. But in terms of what BBC Radio do, if you add that, okay, I've just released this new body of work, I'd love for you to have a look and I'd love to be interviewed, just ask, you know, just send an email. Like, so many things are done by just sending an email, finding out, especially with BBC as well, if you find out the name of the person, you've already got their email, because the BBC, it's first name dot second name at bbc.co.uk, or it's, so not necessarily even have the dot in between their first and second name. As long as you know their name, you can send them an email. Obviously, you might not get the email right straight away, so have several interpretations of the email of how you would send that. That can help. But in terms of interviews, having a good connection with the presenter as well. I'm not saying bombard them, because I've had one artist who sent me the same song, even though I replied his email, he sent it to me 4 times now. And I'm just like, mate, give it a rest. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's not, I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but it can be annoying. So if you just ask and look out for specialist shows as well, especially with BBC, because we have like BBC One Extra and BBC Sounds, BBC Radio 1, BBC Radio 2, BBC One Extra, BBC Asian Network. You know, there's just so many variations of shows with the BBC. So it's finding out who runs that show. And also I find that a lot of people, they base it off on how many followers like a presenter has. They'll give time to a presenter with thousands and thousands of followers, but they're not really showing respect, say, to me, who's got only a couple of 100 followers, but it's me that can, you know, that works for the BBC, that can recommend your music. And I find that if you just treat everyone the same, then you're more likely to get your music heard. You're more likely to secure that interview, especially with, I don't know how it is in Zimbabwe and South Africa, but in the UK, we're not just radio presenters. Like for me, I'm a writer. I have people who work in film. I've produced. I've got, you know, credits with flipping Patrick Stewart and Sir Patrick Stewart. You know, like I'm more than a radio host. You know, so it's like, if you now judge me or judge someone on their followers and things like that, you know, you're not gonna. That's where you kind of go down. Like I remember there was one guy under Burna Boy's post, and he was like, please listen to my music, da 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 da. And I was like, oh great, you know, send it to me, da da da. And he was like, oh yeah, you can download it through this and this. And I was like, okay, no problem. Like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But then I completely forgot about him. I completely forgot to download. But if he had sent it to me, you know, I would have listened. I would have been able to hook him up or whatever. I'm not saying I can necessarily hook up everyone, and, you know, but if I'm working on a TV show and they're asking, obviously they have their composers. Like in the chat, I put audionetwork.com. That's the BBC, where if I'm making a news segment and I need a backing music, backing track, that's where they go to select music. So I'd encourage everyone to sign up for that, or to send their music to that as well. And yeah, I'll interview, as long as you're unsigned and upcoming, I'll interview you. And it's all about, but with the bigger stations, if you have a buzz around you, you know, they're more likely to grant you an interview. That's why I'd encourage you to reach out to the smaller stations, who if you reach out to the smaller stations, to the smaller presenters, they will more likely grant you an interview. In terms of like Capital One Extra and BBC One Extra, they only kind of grant interviews to bigger artists. And also I'd encourage collaborations, especially cross-continental collaborations. I remember one of the artists that I know, I hooked him up with a collaboration with a UK artist who is quite big in the UK scene. He may not necessarily be big worldwide, but in terms of the UK market, he's very well known, because we do a lot of like university gigs as well over here, like in terms of freshers. Obviously not this year because of COVID, but when you join a university, they usually have a series of like workshops and events called freshers, which they invite artists, they invite poets and things to perform for their students. I'd encourage, like, obviously you guys are in Africa, so, but if you're ever in UK, I'd encourage you to join, to email, find out their student union, to email the student union and things like that. And because there's a lot of artists that are big, like really big, with university aged people or for school age people. And if you can get a collaboration with one of those artists, then, you know, that's another fan base that you can tap into, you know. So I think I more than answered the question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sorry about that.
Nah, no worries, no worries. Rutendo, I know you had a question. Are you ready with your question? Rutendo?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Hey.
Oh, hello, sorry, it's like 1 a.m. and stuff. So I have just like a contribution to this conversation from a perspective of someone who's left home and kind of trying to debut in another country. I think it's just a matter of like now actually having a brand manager who can actually give me take my dream and make it into a plan. It's kind of like just creating a team basically of creatives who basically you look around you and you know you've got, if you're like me, I've got friends who are in the industry in different aspects. And I kind of just approached my friends formally and I said, guys, this is where I'm at. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
So I just said, guys, this is me. I'm rebranding and this is what I want to do. And I would like you to be a part of it. And I want you to be in charge of ABCD. And I just approached my friends like I'm approaching them as a business person. And I explained to them that right now, although I don't have any money to be like paying them, but I do have a plan and this is where we're going and whatnot. And I asked them if they could be a part of it. Some on board, others not yet, others may never get on board. But I think it's also important for us as creatives to really look at how we can help each other. Not all of us, like, we're not all just singers or rappers or producers. Some of us have so many talents, and I feel like if I'm a designer by profession and I know for example Shaldo needs an outfit for his next video or he needs styling, I can maybe be available for that, and vice versa. Whatever I need, if I need a hook for my song, I can get Shaldo on that. And I think we have so much power as up and coming, or should I say up and coming creators, to where we all have a fan base, no matter how small it is, and we should find ways of bringing our fan bases together. I know like we all in different genres, and probably my fans don't listen to, the type of music that, other artists make, but I feel like through collaborations and through just really just I know one of my friends started like a channel where she reviews music from Zimbabwean artists. And by that, you get people to interact with music that they probably may never have listened to because you're interested in it, and they can begin to feel that. And I feel like that's another way of actually looking at it. And also just doing a lot of market research, because obviously I'm in a country where they speak a different language. Everything is different. The system here, like, music is the music industry is totally different from Hollywood. So the model I've been following, which is kind of almost, because in Zimbabwe we don't really have a structure, so I kind of try to adapt a more, I'll say, American or international in quotes. And it doesn't work here in China as yet, because China is a whole different animal in terms of like live shows are the ones that pay more than streams and whatnot and stuff. So just really researching whatever market, because I feel like when I was in Zimbabwe, my mind was really closed off to the potential of breaking out in another country, because I never thought I would be able to come back to China and actually be doing a degree in pop music and be able to actually now create a fan base for myself here as an artist, and not doing covers as I used to do when I was here. So I think it's just a matter of really researching that market and don't be so, because I feel like a lot of us, when we see people breaking out into the American industry, we're so excited at that prospect happening for us, but we also neglect to realize that the world is much bigger than America, and also that the world is now much smaller because of the internet. And so, yeah.
That is correct. This digital age has really made things a lot simpler. Tina, I just want to go to your question, because I know we touched on it a little bit, but we really didn't get into it.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, well, hi everyone. I was just asking about the royalties. I feel like we began to talk about it, but we didn't really. So my main thing is, as an artist who has some music playing on radio in Zimbabwe, I actually, to be honest with you, I really don't know how to collect the royalties for them from Zamura. And I also don't know that if a song made it to radio before it was registered, do radio stations keep a record of like the music and then later on you can go and register it, or how does it work? I am signed to Samro, but I don't know what's been going on with that. So yeah, it's a very confusing thing for me. So if anyone could clarify that, I'd be very grateful.
Okay, I'll go first and then Danny will take the Zim aspect. I'll start with
Right.
Samro. So
Perfect.
with Samro, it's great that you're registered with
Yeah.
Samro. And what you'll need to now then do is you need to get an addendum done. And basically it's a letter saying that you are allowing Samro to collect your money from
Right.
Zamura, right? It's a bit of a
Okay.
process. Exactly. Yeah. It's a bit of a process because I know that there's some friction between Zamura and Samro at the moment because of obviously currency issues.
Right.
And Danny will be able to touch on that a little bit because I think artists are getting paid in Zimbabwean RTGS.
RTGS. Yeah.
So, you know, it's either that will happen, but it'll be very difficult at this stage for Samro to actually take on that fight. Because you know the money needs to be worth it for them, if that sort of like makes sense. So either that, or you might have to just register directly with Zamura. And even in that alone, I know that you have at least about 3 years worth back of music you can claim. It's just that if the radio station can prove that yes, we've been exactly, we've got it on record, we've played it and so forth, you'll be able to collect your money. Locally in South Africa, you know, it's very easy. You just sign up with Samro. You can now do it online. Everything, there's a portal. And basically once that's done, you send in your music, you know, music gets played, you get paid every 3 months, every quarter. You collect your money, but it's important that the music is on radio. I know a lot of artists locally in South Africa are not making money from Samro because they're not getting the airplay. So it's very difficult for them to earn royalties when it comes to, you know, radio because they're genuinely not being played on radio. But Danny will speak on behalf of Zimbabwe and what's happening with royalties.
All right, thank you for that.
You are welcome.
Sure. Hey, Tina.
Hey, Danny.
I don't work for Zimura, but I will speak from what I know. Zimura, just like any other collection agency in the world, works in tandem with all the other ones. So if you are registered with Samro, like Blah said, Samro can collect from Zimura on your behalf. The difference is Samro won't necessarily go with airplay. What they might go with is, depending on the agreements that they've signed with Zimura, they might go with predetermined sort of ratios. So they could determine that, you know what, in previous years, 0.5% of all songs that played on Zimbabwean radio were Tina Masawi songs. Therefore, you get 0.5% of all money that was submitted by Zimura, etc. It really depends on the agreements that they've signed between them. So you can get by with either Samro or Zimura. That should work fine. As of this year, I think actually as of 2 months ago, I believe, Zimura is collecting and paying in both RTGS and US dollar. Also, they say. I'll speak what the official position is. I don't know if people are actually collecting in US dollars, but they say that you should be able to. So what I would recommend for you, Tina, is just to register with Zimura. Just go to their offices if you are able to, or to email them. And people are definitely receiving royalties. I don't know how much it is. There has been, it's actually been, I don't know if anyone has followed legal proceedings, but there has been some issues with collecting and payment of royalties, and after everything's been resolved, as of this point, all radio stations are paying royalties on time, period. It's like no longer, it's no longer mafanis or anything like that. I would recommend that the difficulty with Samro collecting on behalf of you is, number one, like Blah said, the issue of currency, and number two, the issue of how much playtime you actually got. So as of now, all radio stations submit to Zimura every month. This is our entire playlist for the month. And so Zimura are able to get perhaps a more accurate representation, which they're supposed to share with Samro, but I'm not sure in terms of the agreement.
That's not happening.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
So I would recommend, if you do have Samro registration, that's great. Then you can get South African, whatever South African play you get. But I would recommend just getting Zimbabwean as well, if you know for sure you use Zimbabwean airplay. And if you have any kind of proof, like we know you're on radio, you're charting actually, as far as I know.
I don't even know. Oh, that's great.
But you should be able to just send them an email and say, I have proof that I have radio play. And it's on Zimura to then let you know that we will pay you every quarter or every 6 months or whatever it is that they do. I'm not sure.
Perfect.
Just one other thing I wanted to add, Blah, I saw that was coming up in different conversations previously. There hasn't been a lot of nuance in our discussion. We're discussing things very absolutely. So whenever we talk about commercial, we're talking about something that's, 100 decisions are made for money, or when we're talking about issues to do with what song is going to chart. Well, no, this is what, a lot of these things are things you need to consider, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the be all and end all. So just try and think of the nuance. And I'll tell you guys something. This is the kind of stuff I wouldn't say if I was being interviewed on by a news channel, for example. Because if I was being interviewed by a news channel, I'd be over there, no, we are completely for the uplifting of the artists and we believe the community is the most important, etc. Which is true, but ultimately, when I'm trying to get everyone in the mindset of the whole idea of business. So if a radio station is a commercial radio station, and even those which are not commercial, there's always going to be the business element, but that's not always all that it is, because that commercial radio station is made up of people like myself who are passionate about local music. I don't earn anything from local artists, but I really want to see them succeed, so I'll do what I can to sort of push them, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I work within a commercial radio station. So there's always that kind of balance. You have to kind of understand that there's different nuances to every kind of discussion. Very quickly, just to address the question about payola, I saw, that is a problem all over the place.
It's a worldwide problem.
Worldwide problem. I will tell you now, speaking from my own personal experience, don't even bother. It doesn't help you. You may get one or two spins, but ultimately it's not going to help you in terms of growing your career. So it's really just money down the drain, is what I would say. Anyway,
Ani Uno had a question. If you can go ahead, Ani Uno.
Oh, hey.
Okay, we're gonna take. Thanks.
Hi, I was trying to make sure that Tina's question was answered. I thought it was very important. But also just outside of the context, the specific context she asked, in terms of music, her music playing on Zimbabwe stations, if someone is not registered at all with any like performing rights, collecting agency, and their music is playing wherever it's playing, like even if it's playing on BlahTee station in Britain or on Zimbabwean radio stations or stations in China, will the whatever bodies are at play there, the radio stations or the local PROs there, will they keep track of things in the past? It sounded like you addressed that to some extent, but I'm just curious about outside of the Zimbabwean context specifically.
Okay, yeah, I think just to, like I was saying, back to, for the organization that you're registered with, is it worth it for them? That's always the biggest question, because you'll see that, yes, it might be on BlahTee's playlists, and it'll be getting nice spins, but for Samro to then actually take on, the task of wanting to collect that money, it needs to be worth it for them. So there are two aspects we can look at when it comes to how we can use radio. Number one, we can use it for visibility, especially if we're crossing over into another territory, you know, another country, whatever the case may be. Is just now, it goes back to your plan that as an artist, if you're getting, or if you're insisting that you want your song to be played in the UK, right? What is the plan once the song is being played in the UK? How do you want that to advance your career? And once you're able to then, you know, answer that question for yourself, you will do what is necessary to make sure that either you collect the money, or you know that, listen, I'm going to be in the UK next year around about this time. So let me connect with her so that when I do go there, you know, I can also get an interview done. I can do a couple of shows in the club. I can connect with other people. I think the most important thing, and the reason we're having these workshops, is so that we can connect and exchange information, you know. And once those platforms are there, we can now create our own systems, because we also need to realize that a lot of these systems that are there, you know, they're still going to be there even after we're gone. We can work for radio stations now, we can work for record labels. If I don't do my job at a record label, they'll just find the next person to come in and do it. Same thing at the radio stations, you know, but the artist will always be there. So it's very important that we always then, and I know we touched on this, but I'll keep referring to it because I've seen the difference that it's made in some artists' career by always looking at the business aspect of every move that you make, right? Because your career is progressing at the end of the day, you know, and the more it progresses, you now start learning and discovering new things about the industry. I know sometime from now, we're going to be having another conversation about the actual role of a record label in this day and age. And even for us, when we're looking for artists or we're discovering artists, you know, there's certain things that we look at, the criteria that we've put in place to make sure that once we take you guys on, we still also keep our business, you know, running at the end of the day. So like Daniel was saying that, you know, we're doing these workshops and it's important for us to just share as much information as possible. Obviously, we're giving you cheat codes as well because we're inside the systems. You know, these are not things that they would normally just share wherever. But I think I'm going to give it back to Forbes, who's going to wrap it up for us. Just wanted to acknowledge you and say thank you so much for putting this together. I think it's been very insightful for everyone, and we've certainly learned so much from this. So guys, back to Forbes.
Thank you so much, guys, for so much jewels that you guys are dropping, and BlahTee, thank you so much for hosting. And before we wrap this up, I have an important question to ask as well, I guess. Coming from an entrepreneur perspective, you know, we have to track numbers. Understand? For instance, if I submit a song like to Zifm Danny, it would be quite helpful to know how many spins I got, so that I can also match that to my KPIs that I would have set, like with the team and like for my projects, you know. So is there a way, like entrepreneurs or micro indies or people in the music business can access data like that, metadata, like data like that in terms of rotation, spins, and so forth?
Frankly, no. Remember, like Blah said earlier, we have hundreds of submissions per week. So there's no way that you know, detailed information can be provided to every artist. In fact, our policy, if you submit a song to Zifm, you'll actually get an email back that lets you know that it is unlikely that you're going to receive feedback. You receive feedback, it's probably because your song has really blown a lot of people away and it's going straight to the charts and so on, which is a rare occurrence. Ultimately, to be 100% honest with you, try and remember that the radio station, it's almost, you kind of want to work together with and not expect it to work for you. So I get what you're saying. It would be helpful, and I completely understand. If I was an artist, I would love to know how many spins did I get every week on which radio station at what times, etc. But in all practicality, you're not going to get that information. You could employ certain radio monitors that exist. They exist in different places. In Zimbabwe, I haven't come across any. There were a few that I saw that tried to operate, but I haven't seen any that have any kind of longevity. But I know they exist in different places as well. Nielsen in the States, or Radio Monitor in South Africa. I'm sure there's some in the UK. That's kind of what you need to engage. I think it's a service you have to pay for, actually. So ultimately, it's your business as a music person to try and get as much information you can yourself. If you have a good relationship with the radio station, with people who have access to that kind of thing, you could ask, and maybe maybe they're like, what, I'll try and find out from the statistics Ubasa or something. But I mean, it's also not something that that is viable for the majority of artists. Sorry guys, I can't stay much longer. I just wanted to quickly wrap up something before I leave this. Just a reminder that BlahTee said it perfectly. These are cheat codes. It's not official position. So the entire time that we've been speaking, I've tried my best not to give the official position of the radio station is. I've tried to give like the inside view, the cheat codes, the sort of understanding of how you can go behind the scenes and try and get things done. I am available on my Twitter platform. That's the best place to get me, Danny That Guy. I also have, very similar to this, I actually was discussing with
We've lost Danny.
The music business series. So I'm happy to provide more information. But thank you very much for all your questions. I will leave you guys now. I kind of have to go. I know we're already wrapping up, but I really have to go now. But thanks, folks, for putting this together. Thanks, Blah, for hosting. Thank you, everyone else, for being part of this. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Special bye to Tina, as usual.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time, Danny. Appreciate it.
That's great. All right. Thank you so much, Danny. All right, BlahTee, we're going to give you this time to round it up and maybe, leave some words of advice. Then after you do that, I suggest people to leave their information, contact information down below in terms of socials and so forth, so that we can connect. I encourage people to always network during sessions like this, because it's very important for us to build our network capital. So BlahTee.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't really know how to round it up, but yeah, just keep pushing, just keep being polite in your email, being friendly. Don't base it on followers, don't base it on your attractiveness to the person or your unattractiveness to the person. Just be nice and just reach out to people, whoever, whenever, just reach out. And also in terms of like the PRS over here, it's more, as I'm sure you guys know, UK is just more on it with everything. Like, in order to have a radio station, you need an Ofcom license, and then you need a PRS license. So every radio station in the UK, they have these two licenses. And that's how, so if you register to PRS, and that's why I encourage you to make sure that your the name of your track is the same everywhere, is in the email that you send, is in the, you've saved it as the name of the file, because that's how they kind of keep up. And they have like a database in which they pull music from, a lot of these big radio stations. So once you get on that database, you kind of have to label what type of music that you do as well, because it's in sections as well. And yeah, I think that's
yeah.
All right. I don't know how much we can express our gratitude, BlahTee. Thank you so much for sharing, the perspective.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And guys, I think I'll let you know when we're going to host the next Zoom-in station, and we're building a community. Today we were aiming to get 30 people, and I think for the next one we're going to open it up for like about 50 people. So let's continue doing this. BlahTee?
Yeah, I think, just to wrap it up, I just want to thank everyone. It really takes wanting to progress to attend things like this, because I know one of the things we suffer with in this industry is people who think they know everything. So, you know, really taking your time to ask questions and understand things is how a lot of people are going to make progress. So I really just wanted to thank you guys, because I really appreciate also just the platform, to be able to come out and just speak on things that I've experienced. You know, I'm still experiencing things. Being in a record label has been one of the most challenging things, especially coming from an independent point of view, because there are lots of things I've had to relearn, that I thought I knew about the music industry. But the most important thing is that, you know, just carry on doing what you're doing. We've got superstars here. I can already identify superstars that have joined this chat. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to how your careers advance from here. And everything you've learned, man, just apply it. And, you know, like I said, always stick to the plan. Once you stick to the plan, it'll eventually come back together. So thank you so much, guys. I am BlahTee Mchema on all social media. Connect with me if you need to ask me any questions. Send me a DM. You know, if you need my number, I'll text it to you. If you need my email address, just hit me up on social media and we can connect. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. It's a round table. So, like, if you guys want to say, share your last words, let's quickly do it, so that at least as we get to the 2-hour mark, it's done. So you are free to share. It's a round table. It's just like, you know, vibing. We're vibing with friends in a studio or like at a party. So you can quickly give up.
Now, let me say something. I've got sorry, just kind of you need to check your uploads as well, because I've got this artist who I love his song. That's the only reason I put it on a playlist, because I actually personally love the song. But if I didn't, I wouldn't have put it, because at the end of his song, he's got a 35-second silence.
Wow.
That messes up with playlists. It messes up with like your streaming as well. It messes up with so many things. And I've also noticed a lot of people, they pay a third party to do a link tree for them. And then when you click on that link tree, it takes you to a completely different song. That has happened like 4-5 times. So you need to make sure that, you know, these third party companies that you choose, that they're not just all about the money, that it's actually a passion for them, that they actually want to genuinely help you. Yeah, double check your content, because I found the same song with several different names. That already messes up with the amount of money and things that you're going to get. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Baki. And I'm sure like you have a lot of jewels to drop. People are going to hit you up in the DMs.
Yeah,
that's very true.
I was going to ask what her Instagram and Twitter handles are.
Yeah, on Instagram is more where I do the music, because like I said earlier, like I'm a writer, I do a bunch of other stuff as well. So Bookie for Dipe is my Twitter, but more for music, Bookie on the radio. I'll drop that again.
Thank you.
Forbes, what I would also suggest is, if you can just put like all of our Twitter handles on just the under the comments, on the actual post of today's
the poster, right?
Yeah.
Today's tweet. All right, sure.
So, you know, you can just share, and then guys can also just connect. But yeah, guys, you know,
all right, that's great.
let's connect, let's network, let's get into different territories, and let's make money. You know, let's definitely make money.
All right, guys. If you,
all right, guys.
Yeah.
Now, saying guys can go ahead and I don't know if there's anyone.
Guys, I'm going to head out. I just want to say thank you so much. It's been awesome. Thank you, Menashe, for inviting me to this. It's been a really eye-opening experience. It's been so nice getting to meet all of you, and I'm looking forward to like connecting with everyone online. And we keep the conversation going. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm also out.
Yeah, big shout out to everybody. Big shout out to BlahTee, Buki, Falls, especially for bringing this together. I really appreciate you guys. Actually, I would like everyone to also come up and introduce themselves to, what you do personally so that we can know who and who we are connecting with. I'm Rosie, I'm an artist from Nigeria, and I would like to connect more to artists, producers, A&R, for me to get to know more people and to actually know who and who I need to connect with. It's really much important. If everybody can come up and tell us what they do basically.
All right, let's connect. All right, guys, I have to Josh. Have a good night,
it's
guys.
all good. Nance, do you have anything to say before we go?
Before we go, no, I don't really have anything to say. I think I just want to mostly say, because as someone that has been trying to break into the mainstream for the longest time, I've found myself wanting to sign contracts and get into deals, even when I see that this is actually a really bad deal, but for the sake of just putting myself out there. So I think everyone should know that be patient. Don't get yourself into any terrible deal. I'm still dealing with the aftermath, so I don't want anyone here to actually have to get into that. So be careful what you get yourself into.
Yeah, I'd say I'd encourage everyone to be patient as well. Like, I've been doing radio and things for a long time. I think, and only just this year I started working at BBC. I've done some other things for BBC in terms of writing my own TV over the years, but in terms of radio, like, everything takes time. You're not going to blow like overnight, and even if
in a minute, yeah,
things, keep going. As long as you believe in yourself, like, I think that's all that matters. The people will come, and as long as you're staying consistent and being true to yourself.
Thank you for that, Buki.
Yeah.
That's very true. Panashe, do you have anything to add, to say before we go? Because everybody's saying something, then we just bounce, we round it out. I think if everything is on, guys, thank you so much. I can't express enough gratitude. Thank you so much for joining. And
Can I ask just one last question?
Yeah.
All right. So I have an artist, right? Whose name flashes or tallies or is spelled the same as someone else's name on Spotify, and for some, whenever we distribute, his songs, they actually go and store under someone else's catalog because they have the same name. And I've been trying to deal with this particular problem for a long time now. So I don't know. How can I, handle this?
Can I?
Oh, go on.
All right, fine. Let me answer to that, then I'll pass it on. All right, I think the best advice I can give you is you need to find an alias as soon as possible. That's the best way you can save time and energy, because what's going to happen is if you're going to use aggregators to distribute your music, you constantly have that problem, and it will get worse when it comes to collecting data in other places as well. So the best thing you could do is solve it. If your artist is too small, start using another name and start distributing with another name already that is unique. But just to solve the problem, if you want to continue using that name, hoping that your artist will be the bigger artist and ultimately the biggest artist, right, with that name, what you have to do is you have to constantly contact the aggregators, contact the music platforms. I think you can do that with Spotify and Apple Music as well, so that you could actually sort your catalog and organize your catalog as well. So, but it's texting. This is why I would advise you to find a unique name, a unique trademark as well.
And can you not register officially, copyright that name? I know I'm going to take money and things like that. Again, invest in your artist, invest in yourself.
Yeah, very true.
there's like a quick fix type of thing to it, because I also have another Nans, and when my music would be uploaded, things would just be messed up. So there is actually a little platform on Spotify for artists that you can send them an email, or Apple Music, like you said, Forbes, and they're gonna give you a little ID where distributor specifically that this is the ID and this is the artist, and in that way nothing gets messed up. Because that's why when I drop, I need to send that ID, and then my music is uploaded exactly where it's supposed to be.
And can't you like change to a number, like instead of
no
3 or something? No,
I didn't change mine. No, I just told them that this is the problem. We have the same name, and my music is now on his profile. And then they just fixed it and gave me that ID. That tell your distributor that this is your ID. Next time you drop a song, it will be.
Thank you for that contribution. All right, guys. Any Panache? Any last words? Nance? Nance already gave us. Ruchendo.
No, I'm good. Thank you. This was good.
All right, guys. Without wasting much of your time, I will let you guys know when we're going to have our next Zooming session. Hopefully, everyone will come back and continue to connect and build. Okay. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so
Bye.
much. All right. Goodbye, guys. Hello.